Sewlush, easy projects fully explained. How to make a zipped pocket for a bag or a purse. I'm currently making this bag that's going to be a pattern in my shop. It's made out of Harris tweed, and I get this lovely Harris tweed label with it because it's genuine tweed, and the design of the bag is one that closes with a flap and a little lock, and the lock's in the shape of, I think it's a bee, but it might be a butterfly, and then it closes like that. I'm only halfway through making it. As you can see, I haven't attached the flap yet, and I haven't put the lining in either. I've lined the flap, but I haven't lined inside the bag. The reason for this is because I'm currently making the lining, and in the lining I'm going to put a zippered pocket, and that's what this is about today. So for this project you need one side of your lining, you need 2 pocket pieces, and you also need some lightweight fusible interfacing. I'm using Vilene. And you need a zip, and you can see that my zip is a lot longer than my pocket, and that's what needs to happen. The first thing you need to do is attach the fusible interfacing to one side of your pocket piece, and I've just done mine. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some measurements onto that pocket piece. You need to measure down 2 centimetres from the top of your pocket piece. Make a mark, and then you need to make another mark at 3 centimetres down from your pocket piece. You need to measure straight lines across. And then you need to measure in from the edges of your pocket piece to make sure your zip is central. And I'm measuring in 2 centimetres. I'm using a friction pen, and these are available almost anywhere. They look like ordinary biros to write with, ordinary pens, but when you iron onto where you've marked, the markings just disappear. It's brilliant for marking for dressmaking or for craft work. I wish they were paying me for this ad, but they're not. Right, so now you've got your marks on here, and you now need to draw a V at the end of each mark. And then you need to draw another line in the centre, and the best way to do that is just to measure and put a mark at half a centimetre, and then measure across. You've now got some markings that look vaguely like this. And these are your markings for your zip. You're going to lie your zipper piece on top of your lining. You want it to be a reasonable distance from the top, because otherwise it's very fiddly to try and open your zip. So I'm doing mine, I'm going to do it 5 centimetres from the top. And then just make sure that it's at the same distance on each side. Yep, pin it onto your lining fabric. And then at the top, you're going to put a pin in the middle, and you're going to remove that before you sew there so that your line doesn't have a bump in it. So that's what we've got now. And I'm going to sew along this top line, down the side, along the bottom line, up to the top, and then just reverse a bit to tie it off. I'm not going to sew the V's or the central line. Once you've sewn around those lines, just trim off any excess thread you've got. And then remove your pins. And we're going to cut this hole now that you've sewn around. So to start with, try using a seam ripper just to make the first cut. That'll give you a little hole to start off with. And then use your scissors and cut along to the end and stop at the V, and then from the V cut to the corners. And you want to cut right to the corners but not through the stitching. So you've now got a hole, and you're going to put your fabric through the hole. And then smooth it out on the other side. Nice oblong hole with straight lines. Now we're going to insert the zip. And I did warn you that the zip was a lot longer than the hole. What you're going to do is open your zip to about halfway and put it underneath your hole, like that. Now if you're an experienced sewer and you can manage to stitch around that hole without pinning your zip, then you can go ahead and do that. But for people who aren't quite so confident, I recommend this. This is some glue called Gutermann HT2. It's a fabric glue. And what you can do is you can glue down one side of your zip with some Gutermann, and then glue down the other side, and then take your lining fabric and just lay it over the top of the zip, making sure that the teeth are central. Press it into place, and now you just have to wait a few minutes for that glue to dry before you start stitching. This is a foolproof method of getting your zip into where you want it to go. I try not to at least pin my zips, because inevitably you'll get a bump wherever your pin is in if you're going to sew over them, and if you take them out as you sew, you often end up with a little bit of scrunched fabric at the end of where you're sewing. So as I say, I try not to use pins if I'm doing a zip, but glue like this, you can see it's perfect, because now you can just stitch. And again, you now need to open up your zip again to about halfway, and then you're going to put this under your machine, well, not underneath it obviously, and you're going to put this under your foot and stitch along the long side, down the short side, along the bottom long side, back up the short side, and do a little bit of additional stitching to go over where you started so it doesn't come undone. Where the zipper is now, and I'm going to raise my foot and close the zipper, and then continue on sewing. As you can see, I've now got my zip sewn in and trimmed. The reason I said to leave your zip a lot longer was so that we didn't have to contend with the metal pieces at the start and finish of a zip, and also so that you can get this nice finish by sewing your zip without having to worry about sewing, you know, turning these under and all that kind of malarkey. So you're just going to trim your zip now. I have a pair of sewing scissors, which are these, and don't use those for doing your zip. What you'll do is end up blunting them. I have another pair of scissors that are an old pair of just trimming scissors, and I've got them marked for paper, and I use these if I'm cutting paper or cardboard or any kind of craft materials, but also if I'm doing my zips. So you just fold back the fabric and cut it so that it's level with the side of the zip, the side of the pocket, and the other side as well. So now that's what you've got. You're going to lie down, face down, right side of the lining face down, which will give you one side of the pocket face up, and you're going to place the other piece of pocket over the top of it. And then with your pins, you're just going to pin that into place. When you do that, make sure that you're lifting both pieces of pocket up. I don't know if I can show this to you easily, but lift both pieces of pocket up and pin it. Don't pin like this, so that you've got the pin on the outside of the lining. When you pin it, you're just going to pin the pocket. So you can see the pocket is still able to move away from the lining at the top and at the sides. It's not pinned to the lining at any point. Now you're going to put this under your sewing machine, again under your foot, and you're going to stitch down 1 centimetre or half an inch from the side seam all the way around the pocket like that. So now this is what you've got, a zip and a pocket. You can now go ahead and finish your lining, put it in the bag, and then the lining will sit inside this bag. And I'm going to put this piece of lining at the back of the bag, so you can see that when it's in place you've got a very handy internal zip. You can use this same method to put a zip on the outside of a bag, exactly the same, and anywhere else you might want to put a zip like that. I haven't given you any dimensions of the pocket itself, and that's because depending on your project your pocket will be a different size, but the dimensions for the hole in the pocket don't change except for the length, but the widths don't change. So if you want to put a longer pocket in, of course make your hole longer, but don't make it any wider. It needs to be kept at that width just so that it fits your zip and it looks nice and neat. If you've enjoyed this tutorial today, can you please like and share, and you might like to leave a comment as well so that I know what you made of it. This tutorial has come from www.sewlush.org.